Welcome to Expats Listen with Ryan and Liz, the podcast where we share the ups and downs, the struggles and celebrations of living abroad.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Liz. So Ryan, tell us, how is your week going?
Oh, it is a busy week. We're doing a lot of traveling. We're seeing a lot of Europe, and we had the exciting opportunity to go across the English Channel on the Channel. And it was really a really interesting experience sitting with Henry on my lap, being on a train, in a tunnel underwater, and then arriving in England, and then driving on the other side of the road. Really fun experience. And you, Liz?
Yeah, it was super cool. Henry's first real overseas adventure. So our dog has now traveled more than a lot of our friends and family have. But I think it's really great. And we're happy to be here in the UK at the moment. And today we actually have our first ever interview on the Expats Listen podcast. We're really mixing things up because we have a South African named Ryan, but he is a different person than our co-host Ryan, and every expat has their own story. So let's dive in. First things first, Ryan, welcome. What's your name and where are you from and where do you live now?
Thank you guys, jeepers. Yeah, what an honor. Second Ryan on the podcast. My name's Ryan Brock. Originally from South Africa, born and raised in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. So yeah, was born in Port Elizabeth, then moved to small town Grahamstown. Went to school there for a bit and then high school in East London. And then went back to university in Grahamstown. So kept it all within a radius of probably like 300 kilometers. And yeah, now I find myself living in the UK, in London, with my family.
When you were young, did you know a lot of people who lived in other countries? Was travel a big part of your life? Or what were your kind of experiences of life outside of South Africa?
Yeah, very, very minimal, to be honest with you. Like all of our holidays were pretty local. We were really blessed to, have the beach and the coastline within, 45-minute drive from where majority of my sort of younger years were. And then, later years moved to East London where we were obviously at the coast, which was amazing. And then travel was very limited in terms of international travel. First trip overseas was really just across the border to Botswana, and that was only when I was 13, 14 years old. And then was lucky enough to go on a school music tour also at the same age. And that was my first exposure to international travel. But as far as like international friends and all of that, or people that I knew were traveling internationally, it was probably all pretty much the same. Everyone sort of did their holidays locally, the game parks and things like that in South Africa, traveling to the mountains and the Drakensberg. So yeah, that's pretty much the extent of my travel in the younger years.
Yeah, so Ryan's obviously from the same area that I'm from. We grew up together in the same local area in South Africa, and international travel just wasn't a big thing for people back then. It's a small place, it's pretty rural at times, and the small cities are quite small. We have everything that we need, but not really glorifying adventure and long distance travel and learning new things. And it wasn't really put on our table as being something that we could necessarily achieve. I think we always knew that we could have done it, but no one was pushing us to make that move, which I thought was interesting when we think about it, because so many people come from small places where international travel isn't encouraged and it isn't glorified to a sense of creating some level of aspiration and ambition in young people to go and achieve that. And I think for us it was getting to the age and to the point where we had enough exposure from people outside of our local community who had gone out and experienced all of these new things and told us about it, and we've heard about it, and even just media, and that gave us the interest in actually discovering all of that. And I think a lot of people from small towns go through stuff like that.
Would you say that that trip that you took for the music tour kind of sparked something in you that made you want to travel more? Or did it make you ask a lot more questions? Or how did you feel when you went really overseas, like not just to the neighboring country, but quite far? And can you tell us a bit about that trip?
Yeah, no, it was super exciting. Like it was, I remember, you know, it was when I was 13, 14 years old, and it was only 2 weeks in total length, but it felt like we saw and did a lot in that time. We managed to do 3 countries in that time. The majority of the time was in Austria because we went there for that competition was hosted there. Did a bit of traveling around Austria itself, and then we also did some time traveling in Germany and in Hungary. And yeah, it was fascinating. Like obviously being a young teenager, first travel, like there was, I distinctly remember being fascinated by the breakfasts because you know, growing up in South Africa, it was, yeah, you'd have your cereal for breakfast before school and that was it. And then, you know, maybe on the weekends you would do a bit of a fry-up or something like that. But there it was, you know, suddenly this continental breakfast where I was getting served rolls and cheese, and that was the breakfast. And I just and cold meats.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Yeah, it was like surely not. This can't be a breakfast.
Why are you people eating like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just a memory that's completely stuck with me. That, you know, why are these people in Germany, Austria, Hungary? Because it was all the same, right? In all 3 of those countries, very similar culture-wise. But yeah, their breakfasts just blew me away. So I must say, I did enjoy going back home to South Africa, and you know, then being able to go and have my cornflakes or Cocoa Pops.
It is really interesting the things that stand out to you when you do experience a new culture for the first time, because it's not always the cultural aspects and elements that you might see on Instagram videos or travel guides. Sometimes it's just like the color of a certain sign is different to where you're from, or something smells different, and it creates such a big part of being, wow, I'm in a new place and this is super interesting.
It's true. My first trip abroad was to London when I was around the same age, around 12, 13. And the thing that I remember most from that trip is that in the taxis, you got to sit backwards. Right. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the whole world. And we were there because my dad was working in London for the summer. So we actually went for the whole summer. And the taxis were incredible. And then the soda machine in my dad's office, you could get any soda you wanted. And this was like the days before those Coke Freestyle machines. So my biggest memories of international travel from my first trip were sitting backwards in a taxi and drinking a lot of soda.
Yeah, there you go. Like it's just the things that you remember. But like talking about the soft drinks and things like that, I remember the Fanta being absolutely terrible.
Really?
Yeah. No,
what didn't you like about the Fanta?
It just didn't taste like Fanta. Like, I mean, obviously in South Africa, you get your Coca-Colas and you get your Fantas. And
do you remember what it tasted like?
It tasted less orange. Like
less orange.
It was probably less fake. You probably had the like sugarier Fanta.
Exactly. Yeah, I reckon the one in South Africa is obviously probably not the most original one, and it probably had more sugar in it. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you brought this up, because Fanta for me is something that sticks out between the 2 different countries. The Fanta in South Africa is really just orange flavored syrup and fizzy water. Whereas I feel like the Fanta in Europe today is almost more fizzy orange juice.
Yes.
And I like that difference. How do you feel about Fanta these days?
To be honest, don't drink much of it now.
Okay.
If I do get the chance, and this is like obviously, you know, living abroad and having the...
You're not out here drinking a liter of Fanta a day, but...
Yeah, but the one that I would opt for, I guess, in terms of like fizzy drink in that direction would be the French
Orangina.
Yeah.
Oh.
That is fantastic, because that is very much like orange.
Orangina is the OG, is the king of orange sodas.
It's
absolutely.
delicious.
No, for sure.
All right. Well, so that was your childhood experiences. Let's talk about now when you became an adult and started to travel a bit more. So, what was your first time that you actually moved abroad, and how did you make that decision to go abroad for that first time?
Yeah, so that was, fast forward through school, university, and then straight into working life. I sort of got to a point where I didn't do any international travel or have a gap year, so to speak. Got to a point where I wanted to go and do some traveling, and one of our best friends from school and university days, also Orion.
Everyone they're friends with is named Ryan.
Yeah, it's exclusive club. Him and his wife were out in Taiwan at the time, and so we were obviously staying in touch, and I had this sort of urge to go and travel and explore and just sort of have a break from working life as I knew it in my 20s, and went to Taiwan for a year and lived there. I managed to convince my brother, who was he's 6 years younger than me, but he was finishing up his studies in the States, and I said to him, hey, let's what do you think about going to Taiwan for a year and traveling and teaching? And he was all on board for it. So yeah, we had an awesome gap year in Taiwan.
Do you feel like it was easier to make the decision to go there because your brother was going with you?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some comfort in the fact that he was there, and then also one of our best friends was there too. So it came with definitely a soft landing when we first got there, because he had already figured all those things out. Him and his wife had already been there for a year or two at the time, and so they knew, hey, this is what you need to do to get, transport or a scooter or things like that. This is the way that you would be able to go and get an apartment. So, yeah, we were very lucky in that sense that a lot of that part to figuring life out at a new country, we had a head start with them.
Do you feel like you gained some confidence in that trip, having that guidance to explore and to have all the basics covered? Was that confidence inspiring, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think whilst there was a bit of a soft landing, so to speak, there was a lot of stuff that we obviously still had to figure out ourselves. And
sure.
Going for a trip over the weekend, you have to figure out, like,
sure.
I need to get this train, I need to get this information, etc. So yeah, I definitely think there was a confidence that was gained through those travels.
Nice.
And then you came back from Taiwan, and you had a long-distance girlfriend throughout that time in Taiwan. You came back and you reunited with her in South Africa. And then what happened?
Yeah, so I think going back to the year in Taiwan, Dawn came over and visited, which was great. So we did a little bit of travel in Taiwan itself, but then we also booked a trip to Vietnam, and that was amazing. So got to see a bit of Southeast Asia that way and traveled around Vietnam. And then, yeah, came back in 2016, and we set up in Johannesburg. We were living good lives. We had all our old friends that we had obviously made from the previous years. And then an opportunity came up for Dawn. She saw a job posting that came up for a position based in London. And she said to me jokingly, this would be a dream job, but there's no chance that I'll get it. But I said, go for it. And she did. And she managed to go through the first 2 rounds of interviews, which were all obviously online or Zoom calls at the time. And then she got through to essentially the final round, where the CEO of the company his sister had a holiday house in Plettenberg Bay, which is in the Eastern Cape, and invited her to an interview there. And so we were, at the time, my parents were living in Port Elizabeth, so we took the day to drive through to Plet, and she had the interview. I still remember going to a Shell garage, having a coffee there while she was having this interview. And yeah, she got back into the car and she was like, they've offered me the job. They want me to come to London. So that was obviously super exciting and quite a shock, I guess. I mean, we were obviously just on a family holiday, and now suddenly it was like, hey, are we moving to, do we need to move to London soon?
So you were sitting in a shell garage, drinking a cup of coffee, having no idea that your entire life was going to change in a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had a very good feeling about it, considering it was the CEO himself inviting her, and he was obviously on holiday, so it obviously meant quite a bit. So we did have a good feeling, but yeah, I mean, then suddenly the drive home back to PE was, hey, how are we gonna, we need to take this opportunity. How are we gonna break the news to the family, and are we definitely gonna do this? So yeah.
So did you have a conversation before she did the interview saying if she got the job, you guys were going to move to London, or was it an automatic acceptance of the fact that you were going to now move to the UK as soon as she got that job after that call?
Yeah, I think we said to each other, like, hey, if this is successful, we need to do it for sure.
Okay.
So it wasn't, once she got back into the car, it wasn't like we were debating it.
Sure.
It was more of a case of, how do we break the news to everyone that this is actually happening?
So you knew it was going to happen as soon as she got the yes.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it was just an opportunity that we saw that was going to open us up to so much more travel, and that's how we saw it at the time.
Nice.
So when she got back in the car and now you're like, okay, this is happening, we're moving to London, did you talk about a timeline? Did you think we're going to stay for a few years? Did you think we're going to stay for a specific amount of time? Or did you think that it would be forever?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely didn't think any, too much detail into the timeline right then. I know for a fact we definitely weren't saying forever, and it wasn't going to be this permanent move. It was the way that we were seeing is like, hey, let's go over for a few years. Obviously in the back of our minds there's always if you stay in a place long enough, there's the opportunity to become a citizen, but that was never ever even the reason, let's say, for the opportunity to move. At the time, I think we probably thought maybe 2 to 5 years was going to be the timeline that we would come over, because whilst the job opportunity was there, I don't think I think we were quite realistic with ourselves to be like, well, what happens if we're not enjoying it and we want to move back? And so I think we put the sort of safety number of let's go for 2 to 5 years. Obviously, you can't just go for 1 year. That's not going to be worth it. Renting a house, buying furniture,
sure,
all that jazz. But also didn't want to commit to this is going to be a decade now that we are.
So spoiler, how long have you been here now?
Yeah, so now we have been here for 8.5 years. So yeah.
Not what you expected.
No, I think, it's obviously sounds cliche, but life happens. And so we obviously moved over here, rented a house, and then there was obviously a couple of years, and then COVID hit, and that happened. So yeah, then at the same time, we had our first child, also during the COVID time, and then we made the choice to buy a house as well. And so it's just kind of snowballed from there. And now we're in our second house that we've bought, and we've had a second child as well. So life is very much full on moving ahead, and yeah, 8.5 years now.
So if you were to be asked about timeline today, how long do you think you'll stay?
Great question. I think we've already started to say that we want to move back. That's definitely a conversation we have quite a few times, and I almost envy the people that say, no, this is for life, we're going to be here, because then you have that certainty. But we obviously, with small kids and with grandparents back in South Africa and family, rest of the family, we're super conscious that we want our kids and families to obviously spend time with each other. And so it's tough. Like we try and go back at least once a year. And yeah, I think the timeline that we set ourselves now is we're going to move back in the next 5 years. But there's a lot to figure out and a lot to consider because we have kids now, they're going to school. What does that look like and what is the impact on them? And, you know, starting new friendship groups, not only for them, which is probably going to be a little bit easier because of school.
Yeah.
But then for us as well. And where do we go back? In South Africa as well. You know, we've got family in 2 different halves of South Africa. So that's also quite a thing to figure out.
So if you were to go back, where would you go?
I think with our travels back home...
I think he's starting to make decisions without his wife here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit dangerous. Yeah.
Dawn's fully aware of the pros and cons list that we've got for both. I think in an ideal world, Cape Town is very much up there, but then we've obviously got the other, let's say, half of the family in eastern South Africa, and I love Sharks rugby, although they're playing terribly at the moment. It would be cool to go on the weekends and watch the Sharks.
This is how we make major life decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more to there compared to Cape Town, right? So, yeah, I think probably first on the list would be Cape Town, and then maybe Durban a close second. But I know for a fact that, and Dawn and I are 100% aligned on this, that we wouldn't go back to living our old lives, so to speak, in Johannesburg. We just don't see that as where we'd want to settle again.
So what are the things that you love about living in London? There's
a lot. I mean, I think the ability, and this goes back to the kind of original reason we jumped at the opportunity, is the access to the rest of the world, essentially, but especially Europe. So we've been lucky enough pre-kids to do quite a lot of travel into Europe, the likes of Spain, France, Portugal, Italy, and then further than that as well. So I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons. It's a very easy life in some regards, like it being a first world country versus technically the third world country that South Africa is. I guess there's a big convenience factor there, you know, the fact that I guess Amazon's everywhere now, but you know, it works perfectly. I can have something delivered tomorrow. Yeah. There's a convenience factor to it too. There's a safety element to it too, I guess. You know, it's no secret that South Africa has some issues in that regard, and I think it's nice to know that as a family we can walk down the streets to the shops and not necessarily have to go in the car.
Yeah.
But that's definitely down the list in terms of the reasons why we live in London at the moment.
And what about work? Because that was the original reason that you came here, right? It was for your partner's job. So do you feel like the work opportunities are easier in London? Or do you feel as though it was just a once in a lifetime, this job is going to be amazing, and then you had to find a job to make it work here? How was your experience finding work in London compared to in South Africa?
Coming back from Taiwan, I did struggle but those struggles came as a result of me changing direction in my career. I was in like sports rehabilitation to begin with, then went over and did the teaching, and I wanted to move away from the sports rehab side of things. So I wanted to move into sports, sponsorship, marketing, that sort of thing. And it was a struggle, but that was based on the fact that you needed the experience, but I didn't have the experience, so there was that aspect of it. And so it was a struggle, but I eventually got an opportunity in SA, and it was great and going well. Then moving over to the UK, we moved over, Dawn had her job, which was great, and then I obviously started applying for roles once we got here. As much as I tried from South Africa when I knew that we were moving, which was in a space of like 2 to 3 months.
That is quick. So it
Yeah.
was just 2 months between getting the offer and actually coming here.
Exactly, yeah. So Dawn came over in the beginning of March, and I followed like a week or two later. I had a family wedding to attend. So yeah, it was super quick, 2.5, 3 months from the actual offer. And then I kind of struggled, I guess, to find a role. Again, limited experience, although I had that year of working in sports sponsorship in South Africa, it was limited. And I wasn't having much luck finding something. And then, as a lot of times happen, you have a friend of a friend who knows someone, and managed to get into a job that was kind of in sports, but sports and education. And did that for a couple of months. Wasn't very excited about it. It wasn't, definitely not a long-term thing. And then I got the opportunity to move into my current business, which, the right place at the right time, I guess. So it was, I would say there are quite a lot more opportunities for that at the time in London.
But it's interesting that you say it was through friends of a friend and like you knew someone. So did you actually have a community of people here? So when you had moved to Taiwan, you had this soft landing because you had friends there and you already had a bit of an easier path. Did you have that same thing here in London?
We definitely did. So although this time around, obviously moving to an English-speaking country, being the UK, that was obviously a lot easier. But we had some friends that were already here through school days that we linked up with quite quickly, through Johannesburg days as well, so some friends had already moved over. So it was an easy way to, again, transition and build up a friendship group through those friends that you had already, right?
Yeah, it's such a stark contrast to Ryan Govender here, who moved to Portugal knowing absolutely no one.
Yeah, it is. It's a major transition to go through, and I think depending on where you're going, there is a certain level of a head start that's available for different people. So I think the UK is definitely a great place to move if you're a South African and you're looking for a readily available community. You know, you've got a better chance of plugging into a South African community, which you can use as a base to move on to friendships with people from other countries and certainly local British people. I think another good place for that is Australia. So there are a lot of South Africans who are in Australia and are able to actually consider themselves a reasonable community for you to have a base to work from. Moving to Portugal, there are more and more South Africans, but I think that when we moved, it was really a bit tough because it was starting from scratch, making new friendships with anyone who was open and willing to be a friend, really. And I think that added to the complexity and the difficulty of it, if I'm honest. I think when we come to visit Ryan here in the UK, which I try to do a couple of times a year, it's really interesting because of the number of people I get to reconnect with, aside from Ryan, who were part of my life back then, those days too. And it then becomes a really attractive proposition for me to visit because I feel it's almost homely in a certain way, as opposed to, I think when they come to visit in Portugal, we are a big contact point to exploring a world that sometimes neither of us know about, you know? So it really is an interesting thing. I think it makes such a big difference moving to a country where there's a pre-established community of people who you know are at least slightly similar to who you are.
Yeah, and even more to that extreme of people who you actually know.
Yes.
Because I moved to Australia. There's a lot of Americans who live in Australia, but I didn't personally know anyone. So that soft landing wasn't quite the same as, oh, this person who went to the same school as me, or this person who I knew from this thing.
Interesting. Can I ask an interesting question? I think it's an interesting question. Do you think that it depends on the definition of community for those people? Because I'll go out on a limb here and I'll say this. South Africans need community. it's a big part of how we operate. We need each other.
Ubuntu.
Do you feel as though Americans share the same connectedness?
No, I think that Americans are super selfish. I think that we really care about ourselves. And I don't think that we have this warm embrace for other people the way that South Africans do. My experience of the difference between these two cultures is quite a stark contrast, in that I have friends and family who I love and would do anything for, and when people come to visit, I am thrilled that they're visiting me, and I definitely welcome them with open arms, and I'm so happy to have them. And I have visited friends in other places, and they're so happy to have me, and it's great. But it's not the same thing of the third Ryan giving you this list of, here's everything you need to know about living in Taiwan, here's how to get an apartment, here's how to get this, here's how to get that. Like, here is your handbook on how to live in this country. I've lived in so many places, and I've never had that. I went to live with my very best friend in the world in Kenya, and he definitely helped me through all of these things. He helped me get the apartment, but he did it all for me. It wasn't, here's how you do this thing. It was, oh, you're coming here, so I'll just do this for you. And then I never learned, and I could never pass that knowledge on to anyone else. And it was amazing that it was basically done for me. It was very, very easy for me to move to Kenya. But it was just him and I. It wasn't a community of people that we knew. And I, of course, became friends with all of his friends who are still close friends of mine today. But there's something different about the way that South Africans bring people in, of, oh, you know that auntie who went to school with my auntie, and then my cousin knew you from that primary school dance, so yes, come here today, and I know I'm gonna hook you up. I feel like that, like 6 degrees of separation thing happens all the time in South African communities. Am I wrong, or what do you think?
No, you're 100% right, and I think this is going to maybe sound a little bit funny, but in terms of South Africans, what's deeply rooted in our culture and what we enjoy doing is the braai, right? And this is what we do for fun.
What is a braai?
A barbecue, right? So
it's so much more than a barbecue, right? It really is.
Yeah, I mean, entry into anyone's braai is you bring a packet of Simba crisps, and so many people come over to that. It's not just, hey, we're just doing it with our family. It's, no, so-and-so's neighbor is coming as well, so-and-so's friend, and it goes to your point about, oh, well, this auntie has got this family member in town, and this friend is also, and that's, how we sort of bring everyone together, I guess.
Yeah, there's always going to be some reference point which we use for commonality. We have something in common. We've experienced something similar. We're from a similar place. We've seen something that you've seen. We know someone who you know. And it's such an important thing. There's a small business called A Taste of Southern Africa, which is in Portugal. And it's just outside of Porto. And it's being run by 2 people who grew up in my old community in Merebank, Durban. And I found them through Liz on Instagram and made contact with them and started having a chat, and discovered that they stayed very close to where my grandmother's house used to be. And now we're friends, and we've already committed to hanging out at some point as soon as we're back in Portugal, because we share something that overlaps us, and it's important, and we need to meet each other so that we know that we're here together. And it's an amazing thing to have a connection with someone who I haven't even met yet because of what we shared in the past. And I think you're very lucky. I think you're very privileged to have moved to a place where those kinds of relationships are available and ready for you. Even if you didn't know the people that you know that the people here, many of them, know a lot about your life without even ever having had the conversation, which is an amazing thing.
And I think that's something to be said about South Africa as a country as well, that it is smaller, and compared to the US. And I think it is more intimate that you have so many of these experiences that are the same. I feel like my life growing up in New York compared to someone's life growing up in Mississippi, we have so little in common. And to come over and be like, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember that? I probably don't. And they probably don't remember the things that I remember. But I feel like in South Africa, you guys really do have so many of these common core experiences. Like you follow these Facebook and Instagram pages with like pictures of those gummy candies that you used to eat as kids, and you send them to each other, your little friend group, and you all resonate so deeply with those same things.
Yeah,
No, that's true.
I think like one of the things that, I mean, just going on a bit of a tangent here about the US, it almost feels like each state is like its own country, right? And so you could probably relate to other people from New York a lot more than you would from, you know, someone that's in Texas.
Completely.
But that's something that happens a lot. If you ever meet Liz and you ask her, where are you from? She's probably not going to say the United States. She's going to say New York.
Always. The number of times that I've said I'm from the United States, I could count on like one hand. Where are you from? Ryan's from South Africa, I'm from New York.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
I think that cultural identity is that strong.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's also a bit of a point of pride. I love my city. I love New York. I think that New York is an incredible place, and I'd way rather answer questions about New York than answer questions about American politics.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's get back on track. So, how different was your move to London compared to your expectations? So we're going back to, you're at this gas station, you're having this coffee, your entire life changes in a few minutes, you got 2 months, you pack up everything, and you had lived abroad before, so you probably had some expectations of what it was going to be like. You also, like we said, had this group of friends that you knew people who were already here. So how did it measure up? What did you expect compared to what actually happened?
So one of the things, and Dawn reminds me every single, feels like every single year about it, or at least every summer, but you know, you sort of pack up one bag, 22, 23 kg bag of, you know, the stuff that you're gonna now build your life on, moving to a new country. And I packed one pair of shorts because I thought it was always going to be cold and rainy here. And Dawn always looks at me and she's like, why did you decide that it was okay to move to London if you thought it was going to be raining and cold all the time? So needless to say, when the summer came around, which is amazing when it's not raining, of course, I needed to go and buy some new shorts. But
so the weather really surprised you in a good way.
Yeah.
Your expectations were that it was going to be terrible basically every day.
yeah, I think a lot of people will say, oh, London's always grey. It is grey a lot of the time. I think there's probably some stats out there that say 280 days of the year are grey skies or something. But no, the summer is amazing, and I don't think I expected that at all. So I didn't. It was a pleasant surprise for sure. Super long days, the fact that you can finish work and still do all kinds of activities with the sun only going down like 9:30, 10 at night. So yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. Yeah, I think it's another thing that really struck me moving here is actually the amount, especially in London, I would say, is the amount of like mixed cultures, and in some ways it almost felt like Johannesburg, where you've got everyone from different provinces or other towns. They all come there as a place to obviously work and make money, and it kind of feels the same with London.
Just with the world.
Yeah, exactly. So a very like big mix of cultures, nationalities, and so whilst obviously there's a lot of British people, and you obviously meet them at work and you see them on the tube and transport and stuff like that, it was awesome to see the amount of other cultures and the mix that that London has, really. So yeah, I think that was one of the sort of biggest surprises or things that I noticed.
All right, my last question. Do you have any advice for people who are looking to move abroad?
Wow. I think the best advice I can give is be as open-minded as you can be. And I think if you can, it is always nice to have people from your home country that you could connect with and things like that. But I think there's so much value to be gained with exploring outside of that comfort zone. And so it's something that over the last couple of years, I think Dawn and I have really enjoyed, is meeting people outside of the South African community that we love to hang out with, obviously. But it's been really great and fulfilling to make friends that are British, really. And some friends that are from Scotland, some friends that are from Wales and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say that whilst it's always nice to have that comfort zone, that's probably one of the best things that I would say, is just get to know as many people as you can, really, outside of that.
I think that's great advice. Are we ready to move on to Would You Rather?
Ooh, I'm excited to hear the options.
All right. Yeah. Well, Would You Rather is our segment where we ask questions of would you rather do this in country A or country B. But since we have Ryan Brock, who has lived in Taiwan and in London, today we're going to choose between Taiwan and London.
Okay.
Let's get started. Would you rather eat a pizza in Taiwan or in London?
London, for sure.
Why?
Taiwan's not really known for its pizza.
Okay.
Okay, but tell us about Taiwanese food, because Ryan Govender and I have never been, and I want to know.
Yeah, it's definitely not one of those Southeast Asian countries where it's known for its food, like Thailand, maybe, with it, that's readily available at supermarkets.
What are they eating in Taiwan then? I thought it was the same stuff.
Incredible Chinese food.
This is me being completely ignorant. What are they eating out there?
So there's a lot of delicious food, like the dumplings, dim sums.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of that, and it's delicious.
I heard the sausages are sweet.
Yes, I do remember having brides in Taiwan, and there definitely were some sweet sausages there.
All right. Ryan Govender?
Oh, what would I choose? Jeez, that's a good question. London or Taiwan? I'm tempted to say Taiwan just for the sake of saying I've eaten Taiwanese pizza, but I think I would say London. The quality of food in London is very good. The options are fantastic. There's a lot of artisanal, very specialized, really good quality ingredients. So I think you're probably going to get the best pizza in London in comparison.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. I think that London gets such a bad rap for having terrible food, and I have no idea where that comes from, because it's very similar to any other giant international city in the world in that it has people from everywhere, and having people from everywhere means that it has food from everywhere. It's an expensive city, so in order to keep paying your rent on your expensive real estate restaurant, you've got to be selling food, so it has to be good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to sound like a rant, but I think the whole thing is so many cultures globally, including South Africa, when you consider what the native cultural foods of those places are, they're obviously drawn from very long periods of time in the past. So the quality of ingredients, the range of ingredients just wasn't very good. So eating a boiled potato was like a 5-star experience 500 years ago. Whereas now, that's not necessarily the case. So when people are saying, oh, British cuisine is terrible and drab, that's not really true, because you're comparing it to food that was made that long ago. And it's important to have that kind of food now and still have delicious, cutting-edge haute cuisine, which we have now, which is a great thing to have.
All right. Would you rather go for a hike in London or in Taiwan? These are two cities that are not known for
Ooh.
hiking at all.
Yeah, Taiwan for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, managed to actually do a little bit of like outdoor adventure in the year of when we were in Taiwan. And yeah, Taiwan's actually, unfortunately, I didn't make it to the east coast of Taiwan, but it's actually known for the Taroko Gorge, I think it is.
Really?
Yeah.
I think of Taiwan as just like giant city. So there's actually quite a bit of nature.
So the whole western side of Taiwan is very industrial, and yeah, it's cities basically from north all the way down to the south. But when you get down to the south and you go around the other side, the whole eastern part of Taiwan is incredible. So beautiful mountains, hikes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've sold me. I'm hiking in Taiwan.
Yeah, I'm gonna go hike in Taiwan because Brock said so.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, next up. Would you rather ask for directions in London or in Taiwan? This is interesting because, yeah, you speak English, but what's the vibe going to be when you talk to someone randomly on the street in each of these cities?
Yeah, look, I would say, the Taiwanese people are super helpful and they're amazing. So it depends, yeah, I guess it depends on the person that you're asking. You could get some person in London that's had a rough day and they're really irritated and they don't want to, they treat you as a fool for asking, something that you can Google very easily. But yeah, there's also the language barrier, right, in Taiwan. So it's definitely going to be easier asking someone in London, but you probably have a better experience in Taiwan.
Can I ask, what is language like in Taiwan? Are there lots of people who do speak English? Are you able to function well enough in that place?
Yeah, it's a country that does definitely focus on teaching English and getting people to learn that as a language. It's not as I would say, let's call it tourist friendly and as Thailand or Vietnam or
Sure.
those sort of countries. So they're getting there, I would say, in terms of learning English. And
I know we're on the did you rather, but can I ask a question? What do you think about the idea of being an expat in Taiwan, staying there for an extended period of time? Do you think that it's something that's possible? Do you think that you would suggest it to anyone?
yeah, I think there's people that were there for a few years before my brother and I arrived for that year, and those people are still there. So
Okay.
I think they've set up life there, and they looks very much like it's.
You can do it. You can do it.
Indefinite, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Next one, Lizzie.
All right. Would you rather visit for a long weekend in London or in Taiwan, assuming you don't live in either one?
Yeah, I would say London. Actually, my first experience of London was before we moved over here, and that was literally a long weekend. Won a competition to come watch the Springboks play against England.
What?
And, yeah,
Congratulations.
Yeah, I didn't win it. It was Dawn that won it through Samsung. So thank you, Samsung.
We're not sponsored, by the way.
But yeah, that was essentially a long weekend, and yeah, I think you can do a lot in London over a space of 3 or 4 days.
I would agree. And you, Liz? I think London's got so many things to do, so many places to visit. I think it's a great place to be.
I'm choosing Taiwan because I've never been there.
Wow. Okay.
How could I not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Would you rather do a road trip in London or in Taiwan?
Taiwan, I would do that. We were actually lucky enough to do road trips, a few road trips in Taiwan, all on our scooters. So that was a lot of fun. So we would travel down the coastline, head to a well-known beach on the sort of southern border of Taiwan. And yeah, it was just an awesome experience. And so yeah, I'd rather get on my scooter and ride in our scooter gang down the coastline. So yeah, I'll choose Taiwan.
That's actually a good point, though, is because aren't we comparing a city to a whole country?
Yeah.
So I think a road trip through Taiwan, being able to experience the full nation, is going to be, I think, a lot more interesting and exciting, especially for the fact that I haven't been there, and I would love to see what it's like, for sure.
But I guess we're also comparing it to like the greater London area, right? So
London is big.
Exactly.
London is very big.
And I think I'm choosing London here because I feel like the smaller places outside of London are really interesting, and I know nothing about them. And I feel like just on this trip, we're staying in a smaller place outside of the center of London, and it just feels completely different from the center of London, and it's something that I never would have seen when I fly in, see a place and then fly out. You never go to these small places. So having a road trip means that you actually see the small places, which I think is really quite cool here.
I think it really is an important thing to explore this place, London, to a fuller extent, because I think there's this natural, I don't know, tendency to go and stand next to Big Ben for your entire trip and see all of those shops and do the tourist circuit. And I think if it's your first time coming here and you want to see those sites, I think it's a good thing to be doing. But I do think that there's so much more to this country and this place, which a lot of people don't get to experience. And I think we're doing it for the first time now. Yeah, exciting.
Last question. I think I know your answer because you've already done it. But would you rather buy a house in London or in Taiwan?
Yeah, London. Although I will say it is a frustrating process. Yeah, not to go down a whole rabbit hole here of property buying in the UK, but it's really tough, and it's a super lengthy process, and it's dependent on so many other people.
What's the basic rundown of it, in case any of our listeners are considering buying property in London?
So I think the strangest thing I'd say is the fact that a lot of it, you enter a chain, essentially. So if we wanted to buy a house, we would need to put this house on the market. We'd have to have an offer on our house before we could even explore putting an offer on another person's house.
Okay.
So the chain can be as short as there's a first-time buyer and they want to buy our house, and we are buying from someone that's moving and stopping the chain. Or it could extend as far as, well, they're going to buy another house and those people then have to buy another. And it can go on for quite a bit.
Yeah.
So the timing of that must be really difficult because they need to find a house at the exact time that you're looking to buy their house, and then you need to find a house at the exact time that someone else is looking to buy. That sounds like a lot.
And all the deals need to work out.
Correct,
for that chain to move forward.
Yeah, and luckily we haven't experienced this, but we've had friends that have, is the deal can fall apart almost up until the point where you get your keys.
Yeah.
And so it's not a fun process because you have your mind set on moving into this house. You love it, offer's been accepted, but something can go wrong in the chain above the people that you're buying from, for example, and then suddenly they say, well, that's not worked out for us, we're not selling our house anymore. And there goes your opportunity to move. So
wow.
Moving into our current home, it was just under a year in terms of length of process. We had an offer on our house quite quickly, but then to look for a house from our side, we must have seen anywhere between 10 and 15 houses. Put some offers on places, they weren't accepted because it almost goes to like a bidding war. So yeah, it's a long and frustrating process.
Ryan Brock has convinced me to hike in Taiwan and not buy a house in London.
Yep, we will we will stick with the safe options, I think, for sure.
Anything else you want to say before we go?
Guys, no, just thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure just to chat about what life's been like since moving away from South Africa. So yeah, thank you.
No, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us, pal. But yeah, that was our chat with Ryan Brock this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, exploring the movement from Taiwan to South Africa to the UK. Very interesting. And if you guys have got anything interesting to share, anything that you feel, anything that you noticed, any observations, we'd love to hear it. We're always interested to hear other people's experiences in these situations, and it is so exciting and it is so interesting, you know. And so if you want to contact us, please reach out. We're on Instagram at Expats Listen, or you can send us an email on expatslisten@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And until next week, have a good day. Bye-bye.